of the realities of our lives is that we as people, we have obstacles that we have to face. Sometimes I get interested with the accounts in the Bible, particularly Acts, of the conversion of these people. And in Acts, we're following apostles, missionaries, we're following these quote-unquote important people. But what about the Philippian jailer after he was converted? What was his life like after that? What about the Ethiopian eunuch? They said after he was converted, he went on his way rejoicing, but he still had to go back to work. And that's us. We are regular people that work our jobs, that pay our bills, that do our things, and we are Christians, but we're still just regular people. And the reason why I say all this and bring all this up is because the Christian life is not without obstacles. It's not without things that we gotta face, that we have to deal with. And the difference is we just have someone who will get us through it. Someone who will get us through it. And even in the Bible, we see many examples of just people facing obstacles. One of the very first ones I wanted to bring up is Cain. Cain was so upset and so angry that he was considering killing his brother. But God said to him, "Sin lies at the door, but you shall rule over it." Meaning that he was having this inward moment where he says, you can make a choice. You're going to have to face this, but you can make a choice. You make the right choice, you make the wrong choice. But at the end of the day, you have to face this. You have to face it. And when we think about us in our lives today, we have things that go on within ourselves that we have to face. Not all of us are the most desirable people in every single facet of our lives. And that's just being honest. What do they say? What's the phrase go? I'm not a killer, but don't push me. There's times, there's a certain point where we become somewhat different people. And we have to face that within ourselves. Are we going to make the right choice? You even have an example with Abraham and Lot. Just life happening. Their herds grew, and it grew to the point where they could no longer be on the same land. Their herds were fighting each other. That's just life. Things just happen. Nobody was really at fault. It's just life happens. But they had to deal with it. And they had to come to a resolution, say, hey, we're going to have to separate, we're going to have to part ways. We're going to have to go separate so our lands, or so the land can inhabit us well. So our herds can be, well suffice for wherever we are. That's just life. It happens. Same thing with us. Sometimes it's not really anybody's fault that something happens. It's just life. Something happens. Jeremy dropped his TV. Just life. It happens. These are things we have to just deal with. Some of these obstacles.
Why you got to bring that up?
It was a good example. Good example. It's just life, though. Things just kind of happen. But there's also times where things happen and there's conflict with each other. There's conflict with people. That someone is in the wrong. And these are things that we just have to deal with. We have to overcome these obstacles. Even with things such as sickness, things such as death, things such as self-doubt. We'll get more into that in just a moment. But these are obstacles that we as people have to deal with. And just because we are Christians does not mean that we're not going to face those things. And as a matter of fact, a point can be made that it can be in some ways more difficult. In some ways easier, but in some ways more difficult. And I want to just take a very short time this morning, and really this month, to encourage us through these different obstacles and through these different things that the Bible says that we can overcome. We have this issue, we have these problems, yes. But are we ones to say, throw in the towel? Are we ones to give up? Or are we going to be ones to say, you know what, I'm going to push through this obstacle. I'm going to push through this, whatever's going on in front of me. And once again, we all have different obstacles. But every last one of us have them. We all have them. We all have things in our lives that are, if we can say this, in the way of what we want, of what we need, or of things that we're just trying to accomplish. And not all obstacles are bad things. As a matter of fact, some obstacles, like we mentioned before, is just life. I'll give an example of these kids. This baby, in my brain, is not necessarily a bad obstacle. But he's a challenge that I have to overcome within myself and within my family. Because there's times whenever the baby brings out things about myself that I didn't know was there. until he does something or something goes on. I'm like, I'm going to have to deal with that. That's the same thing with life. Some of these things that we have that are good things, in a way, can become an obstacle to us that we have to push through. We have to overcome. And as we get into this, Baker, if you can go to John chapter 16. John chapter 16, and read verses 32 and 33. And here is a promise that Jesus makes as he is speaking to his disciples. He makes a promise to them, and I believe this promise also comes to us as well, as his disciples today. And this is very important because, number one, this is a promise. But number two, when we're talking about overcoming, us overcoming is not because of how special that we are, or how clever that we are, or how good that we are. This is simply because who is with us. What does that say?
Indeed, the hour is coming, yes, and has now come, that you will be scattered, each to his own, and will leave me alone. And yet I'm not alone, because the Father is with me. These things I've spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world.
In the world you will have tribulation. There's gonna be things in our lives that are difficult, that are hard, that are complex. There's going to be some things that are really just kind of lose-lose situations. You got to pick your lose-lose, pick your loss. There's going to be some of those things that we're just going to have to get through. And Jesus, in his promise to the disciples, did not promise to take the tribulation out of the world. He promised that I have overcome the world. I have overcome the world. And since Jesus has already overcome the world, we, as his disciples, can overcome the world as well. That's the point I want to get at. We can overcome. Not because of how good we are, not because of how clever we are, not because of how wise we are, but simply because we trust that we are with Christ and that he has already won. That's the point. Jesus says, I already won. Just stay with me. I already won. I've overcome the world. Go to 1 John chapter 5. You're right here. 1 John chapter 5. And if you can read verses 1 through 5 of 1 John chapter 5, verses 1 through 5. Just think of this point. Jesus said, I have already overcome. I have overcome the world. But 1 John chapter 5, verses 1 through 5, particularly verse number 5, is also going to show us what about this overcomeness do we have. What does it say?
Whosoever believeth that Jesus is Christ is born of God, and everyone that loveth him, that begat loveth him also that is begotten of him. By this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God, and keep his commandments. For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous. For whatsoever is born of God overcometh the world, and this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our faith. Who is he that overcometh the world, but he that believeth that Jesus is the Son of God?
The victory that overcomes the world, our faith. Our faith. Now, in this context, you have faith, you also have belief, and you have obedience. The commandments of God are not burdensome. There has to come a point where we say we're trusting in God. There has to come a point where we say we're trusting in God. And we follow through with what he says. But what if this happens? But what about this? But what about this? At what point are we going to say, I trust God, and proceed and do what we need to do? The victory that we have in this world, we have overcome, we've already won. How? Our faith. Our faith. Our trust in God. Now, we see this illustrated in the Old Testament. 1 Samuel chapter 17. We have the story of David and Goliath. And something I want to point out to this is there was a problem. There was a problem. Now, I have heard, I did not grow up in the streets. I have heard that if someone says something about your mom, that's fighting words. Disrespect. Some people don't take disrespect very well. And I bring that up because that's what Goliath was doing to the people of Israel and really to God. When they say that he was defying the God of the Lord, they were defying Israel, it's very disrespectful. Very disrespectful. And whenever David comes and hears these things, he's essentially like, yo, who's going to take care of this problem? Who's going to take care of it? Everybody there was afraid. Now, I'm sure if any of us saw Goliath, we would probably be afraid too, especially in that scenario. There was no guns, there was no none of that. It was, close combat. But this was a problem. And David, of all the people, was the one that says, I want to take care of this problem. I want to take care of this problem. And I want to read just a couple verses out of this, and I want to show, even David showed us in the Old Testament what it looks like to trust in God, to gain the victory, to overcome obstacles by faith. By faith. 1 Samuel chapter 17. I want to start in verse number 31. I want to start in verse number 31. And look what David does. It says, when the words which David spoke were heard, they told them to Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail on account of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. So David said, look around and say, hey, nobody worry about it. I'm going to take care of this. Then verse number 33. Then Saul said to David, you are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, while he has been a warrior from his youth. Now, when we talk about facing our obstacles, and I want to slow down here because I want each of us to think about obstacles that we are facing in our lives. None of us are facing 7+, 8+, 9+ feet giants. But we're facing something. We're all facing something. And once again, obstacles look different. And as a matter of fact, I'm coming to learn, you know what's a big obstacle? Boredom. Idleness. Lack of purpose. That's an obstacle. It's not something that we can see, like you talked about in Bible class. It's not tangible, but it's definitely there. And it's something that has to be faced. There are different obstacles that we face. And here, David musters up the courage and said, I'm going to go and take care of this. And his leadership said, you can't do it. You can't do it. Unfortunately, it's some of the people that we love, that we care about, that we look up to, that are in charge of us, that try to tell us that we can't do something. But look at David's response, verse number 34. But David said to Saul, your servant was tending his father's sheep when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb from the flock. I went out after him and attacked him and rescued it from its mouth. And when he rose up against me, I seized him by his beard and struck him and killed him. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, since he has taunted the armies of the living God. I want to slow down here again. I want all of us to consider what God has got us through in our past. What God has got us through in our past. Now, some people have a past. Some people don't have as bad of a past as others. That's just the way it is. At the end of the day, every last one of us has gone through difficult things. And looking back, we can say, you know what? God pulled me through. He pulled me through. And I'm thankful that he did. And here, David is making the point, I did this before. God got me through there. This obstacle right here is going to be just like that. I'm going to take care of it. It's going to be just like that. Why? Not because of how good I am, not because of how clever I am, because it's God who is with me. Verse number 37. And David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said to David, go and may the Lord be with you. When we pray and when we're talking about difficulties and obstacles, I want to encourage us not only to say, you know what, I hope I can get through this. I want to encourage us to say, I'm going to get through this. The Lord is going to get me through this. And I'm not going to get through it. I'm going to take care of it, and I'm going to come out victorious. When they say sometimes you come out the battle bloodstained, sometimes you don't. I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to triumph over this. I'm not just going to survive. I'm going to thrive through this. And that was David's attitude in the face of this obstacle where everybody was like, I don't know about this. I don't know. He said, the Lord's going to deliver me, just like he did in the past. He's going to get me through this. But continue on. Verse number 40. He took his stick in his hand. Look what David did. He chose for himself 5 smooth stones from the brook and put them in the shepherd's bag which he had, even his pouch. And his sling was in his hand, and he approached the Philistine. What is David doing here? What is he doing here? He goes and he finds smooth stones, 5 of them. David knows what he's about to do. When we think about this from a war standpoint, David being a youth, Goliath being a massive giant, David was not going to go in here fighting hand-to-hand. David was not going to go in here fighting close combat. He knew better. Matter of fact, one of the things of, I think it was guns that changed a lot of the way combat was done. And somebody was talking about, oh, my boyfriend is 6'5", he's jacked, he's going to beat you up. He's like, and someone said, well, does your boyfriend bleed? He's like, well, yeah. He's like, okay, I'll just shoot him. And that was kind of the idea of, okay, I'm not going to fight him because he's way bigger than me. I'm not going to do that on his terms. I'm going to be smart about this. And that's what David did. He went and he picked out smooth stones because he knew what he was about to do. He essentially made a plan and said, I'm not going to fight this man hand to hand. I'm going to take this from distance. He knew what was going on. He was still intelligent about it. But this didn't take away from his trust in the Lord. We'll get more on that in just a moment. But I want to point that out. David had a plan, and he went to execute his plan. And he approached the Philistine. Verse number 41. Then the Philistine came on and approached David with the shield bearer in front of him. When the Philistine looked and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy and handsome, with a handsome appearance. Jump down to verse number 45. Actually, 44. The Philistine also said to David, come to me and I will give your flesh to the birds of the sky and the beasts of the field. Then David said to the Philistine, you come to me with a sword and spear and a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have taunted. This day the Lord will deliver you up into my hands, and I will strike you down and remove your head from you. And I will give the dead bodies of the armies of the Philistines this day to the birds of the sky and the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel, and that all this assembly may know that the Lord does not deliver by sword or by spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. Then it happened when the Philistine rose and drew near to meet David, that David ran towards the battle line to meet the Philistine. So not only did David say, you're not going to kill me, but I'm going to take you out. And I'm going to do it today. And I'm going to do it, and everybody here is going to know what happened. And then he took it and he ran to the problem. He ran to the problem. So that everyone can know that the battle is the Lord's. When we're thinking about our own obstacles that we face today, I'll run with this one. The idea of boredom and idleness. Can we not tell boredom and idleness, you're not going to win today? Whenever we have loved ones that are hurting, can we not tell the sentiments of self-doubt, getting down on ourselves, being in the dumps, can we not tell that you're not going to win today? As a matter of fact, I'm going to overcome you, and I'm going to make you look foolish. Can we not tell it to that? I'm going to overcome this obstacle that I'm facing, whatever's in front of me, life. And that's what David did. And then we know the story. He runs to him, he throws the rock, and the rock hits his forehead, and he falls, and he does what he needs to do, and he takes care of the problem. And everybody after that was encouraged. And then the armies came, and then they fought. And I bring that up to say this. Whenever we face our obstacles and people around us see, you overcame, it is 100% an encouragement to everybody that is around you. And as a matter of fact, some of you sitting here don't know how much of an encouragement that y'all are to me personally and to my family. Just because I don't even communicate these things, I just kind of watch. And I say, man, that was like a pretty tough situation. But they're still positive and they're getting through it. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Even if I don't say it. My point in bringing that out is, it's not just about us. Whenever David overcame Goliath, he not only overcame him, but he helped all the Israelites overcome their fears. And they were encouraged. But before David got there, everybody was scared. Sometimes it just takes a person standing up and saying, I'm going to overcome this, and pushing through to encourage everybody else around. Consider Matthew chapter 10. Go to Matthew chapter 10. We notice that David trusted in the Lord. He told the obstacle, I'm going to overcome you. I'm going to beat you. But he still made a plan. And he went out and ran to the problem and executed his plan. And we're going to see a very similar pattern in the New Testament with Christ and the 70 that he sent out, the limited commission. Notice what Jesus says. Matthew chapter 10. We're going to start in verse number 16. Start in verse number 16. Jeremy, if you can read, just read verse number 16.
Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. Therefore be wise as serpents and harmless as doves.
Jesus said, I'm sending you out as sheep in the middle of wolves. In a real life sense, that would be kind of a death sentence. You're going to be there, and your predators are going to surround you. And Jesus said, that's how I'm sending you out. But be what? As serpents? What does it say?
Wise as serpents.
Wise as serpents. Wise as serpents. Remember David, when he went and picked up the stones? He was being wise. He was making a plan. But also be what as doves?
Harmless.
Now, if you look into this word, my understanding, what I came out of this, is the idea, not necessarily harmless as not capable of damage, but more or less the idea of unmixed, being pure, kind of being innocent. When you think about someone that is wise, but they are mischievous, or they are, have ulterior motives, it makes it to where they make situations happen so it looks one way, but it's really the other way. They're trying to trick the situation, to deceive. He's making the point, don't be deceptive. Don't be impure. Don't be mixed, but be pure. Which demonstrates Jesus is telling them, be smart, be wise, have a plan, but don't work your plan out to a mischievous end. Don't work your plan out to where you're saying, I'm just trying to get what I want, just to get what I want. Be pure, be holy, be innocent, but be smart about it. But continue on, verse number 17, what does it say? Just keep reading.
But beware of men, for they will deliver you up to councils and scourge you in the synagogues. You will be brought before governors and kings for my sake, as a testimony to them to be Gentiles. And when they deliver you up, do not worry about what you or how or what you should speak, for it will be given to you in that hour what you should speak. For it is not you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father who speaks in you.
Right there. He's telling them to trust in him. These things are going to happen. Beware of men. They will hand you over to court. They will scourge you. They will bring you before governors. These things will happen. They will hand you over. But don't worry about it. And matter of fact, don't worry about what you're going to say, because the Spirit is going to speak on your behalf. Trust in me. Trust me. Continue on, verse 21 through 23. What does that say?
Now brother will deliver up brother to death, and the father his child, and the children will rise up against their parents and cause them to be put to death. And you will be hated for all my name's sake, but he who endures to the end will be saved. When they persecute you in this city, flee to another. For surely I say to you, you will not have gone through the cities of Israel before the Son of Man comes.
But when they persecute in the city, go to another city. Just go to another city. Don't stay there. Go. Go. Matter of fact, there'll be times whenever they'd be leaving to wipe the dust off your feet. If you've done what you've done, go. Still be smart about it, but trust in me. Be smart, have a plan, but still trust in me. It is I, Jesus said, it's I the one. He's the one who overcomes the world. And I bring this up to say this. When we're talking about overcoming our obstacles, overcoming our difficulties, overcoming the things that just life throws at us, I want to encourage us, be wise, but trust God. Be wise, but trust God. And what does that look like? It's not this situation where we just conjure up plan after plan after plan after plan after plan and never act. What if this happens? What if one thing I appreciated about this yesterday, we were talking about, okay, if someone speaks up, this is what we're gonna do. If someone starts making, issues and they want to disrupt, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna make sure we had plans in place, but we didn't plan into oblivion where we're saying, well, we're just not going to do anything until we have all our ducks in a row. That's what I'm talking about. Have a plan. Be wise. Seek wise counsel. But still trust in God. To the point where you obey Him, to the point, even if you say, you know what, I don't know everything's going to happen, but I'm going to do this anyways. I'm going to do this anyways. And so we're talking about overcoming, pushing through, being, or pursuing through, being persistent. Let's trust in God. But let's also be wise. Let's trust in God, but let's also be wise. When we're thinking about overcoming, Christ overcame the world. We have already won. We've already won. And when Christ was on the cross, I was thinking about this during the Lord's Supper. I'm holding Hezekiah and thinking about, this is my son. And God sent His son and was brutally murdered. But even if you take it back, Christ in His life also overcame obstacles. Matter of fact, we think about the religious leaders, the religious elite, the people that were making things hard on people. Christ had to overcome them too. He had to face them too. We think about temptation, we're going to talk about that later this month. Christ had to overcome temptation as well. We think about lack of faith among His inner circle, His disciples, they left Him. Sometimes it's us that disappoint each other. We disappoint each other sometimes. But Christ had to face that too. And it wasn't a situation where He threw in the towel and said, I can't do it. I'm out. Thank God He did. But Christ pushed through. As a matter of fact, He would tell His disciples on certain occasions, you can't handle this right now. But just wait. Sometimes, there's times whenever we with one another, there's certain things we just can't handle with each other. But just wait and push through. Obstacles we face. When Christ was on the cross, and He looked down and He told John, woman, behold your mother. I know there's been a lot of kind of conjecture. Why did Jesus have to tell John to watch over his mother? And it's a good chance that his father was gone. There's a good chance his father was dead. Can we say that Christ had to bury His father? He was still a man. Talk about Bible class. He was still a man. He was God, but he was still a man. He still had to do those things. And as a matter of fact, we go back to him and his seeing his mother. His mother had to watch him suffer. You don't think that there's some of those things going on? He had to overcome those things mentally through suffering. And oftentimes, it's not just the suffering that's difficult. It was a book I read. He made the point that it's not about the suffering. It's about thinking about the suffering. and suffering while you're suffering. I thought it was very interesting, because sometimes it's not what we're going through, it's going through what we're going through. We can overcome these things. And not just because of how smart we are, not because of how good we are, not because it just never happens to us because we're just, we're Christians, so like we have a shield on us and bullets just don't hit. It's not like that. But it's rather the fact that we trust in God. It's rather the fact that we put our faith in the one who says, I have overcome the world. And the resurrection and his death on the cross and coming back and his promises to us demonstrate that he has won. He has overcome. And we are just here to say, we trust in you. And we're going to follow you wherever this takes us. Wherever this takes us. And where it's going to take us is pushing past all of our difficulties that we face. And encouraging one another along the way. That's what I hope to encourage us, especially this month, but just for a short time this morning. We have hardships. We have things that are in our way that are difficult. Problems that can be complex. But we can get through them. And not only can we get through them, but we can dominate them with the help of God. If you have any of the congregation, come now as we stand.